In a quiet, dusty village surrounded by endless plains, a blacksmith named Elias worked tirelessly in his humble forge. His hammer rang out like a heartbeat, shaping iron into tools and horseshoes. The townsfolk knew him as a quiet, unassuming man, strong, skilled, and kind. But on this particular evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows danced in the corners of his shop, and trouble came knocking. A gang of notorious bandits, infamous for their ruthlessness, stormed into the forge. Their leader sneered, his voice cutting through the air like a whip. "Hand over your gold, old man, or you won't live to see another sunrise." But Elias didn't flinch. His calloused hands gripped the worn handle of his hammer, a tool of creation, now poised to defend. Little did the bandits know, they'd cornered the wrong man. The tension thickened as the hammer glinted in the firelight, promising more than they bargained for. Elias stood firm, the glow of the forge casting shadows across his weathered face. The bandits, thinking they'd found an easy target, laughed among themselves. Their leader stepped closer, his hand resting on the hilt of his dagger. "Don't be a fool, blacksmith. You've got nothing but fire and steel." But Elias wasn't just any blacksmith. Years ago, before settling into the quiet life of a craftsman, he'd walked a much darker path. His hands had once wielded weapons, not tools, and he'd fought battles that left scars far deeper than the ones on his skin. Now, as the bandits closed in, the echoes of that life stirred within him. The forge crackled, filling the tense silence as Elias's mind raced. He glanced at the molten steel cooling on the anvil, the heavy hammer in his hand, and the fire roaring behind him. Everything in this shop was a weapon if wielded with purpose. The bandits spread out, their boots crunching against the forge's dirt floor. They grinned, thinking their numbers alone were enough to intimidate Elias. One of them leaned against a rack of tools, casually spinning a dagger between his fingers, while another stepped toward the shelf where Elias kept his coin box. The leader, still standing at the center, barked an order. "Hurry it up. Take what you can. This place stinks of soot and sweat. I'm ready to be done with it." Elias's gaze flicked to the tools scattered around the forge. Each piece, from the tongs to the iron rods, held the weight of his craft and his memories. He tightened his grip on the hammer, his knuckles whitening. The bandits had no idea they were walking into a trap of their own making. Behind them, the fire flared, casting dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. The leader paused, sensing the shift in the air. "What's with the theatrics, old man? You think a hammer's gonna save you." But Elias didn't answer. He took a deliberate step forward, the heat of the forge warming his back. Somewhere deep in his chest, the fire that had been quiet for so long roared back to life, fueled by a resolve stronger than iron. The bandits froze as Elias took another step forward, the weight of his hammer echoing in the stillness. His calm, unshaken demeanor began to unnerve them. The leader narrowed his eyes, gripping his dagger tighter. "I warned you, blacksmith. Don't make me do something you'll regret." Elias finally spoke, his voice low and steady, like the rumble of distant thunder. "You've already made your choice. Now it's my turn." Without warning, he swung the hammer down hard against the anvil, sending a sharp, metallic ring through the room. Sparks erupted like fireflies, momentarily blinding the bandits and filling the space with the acrid smell of burning steel. The leader staggered back, cursing, while the others flinched, startled by the sudden noise and light. "Grab the gold," one of them shouted, rushing toward the shelf. But Elias moved faster than they expected, his movements sharp and practiced. Every inch of the forge became his battlefield, tools, heat, and shadows all working in his favor. The fire roared behind him, its glow turning Elias into a silhouette of unyielding strength. The bandits hesitated, their confidence faltering as the blacksmith they thought was an easy mark transformed into a force they hadn't prepared for. The tension thickened, each second stretching endlessly as the moment of reckoning drew closer. The bandits scrambled, their bravado cracking under the pressure. The leader growled in frustration, his dagger glinting as he lunged forward. But Elias sidestepped with precision, the hammer in his hand swinging in a controlled arc. The heavy tool struck the edge of the anvil, sending another explosion of sparks into the air, forcing the man to retreat with a curse. The leader's eyes narrowed as realization dawned. This wasn't some ordinary forge. The precision of the tools, the power of the man who wielded them. Everything about Elias screamed experience, skill, and something darker. "Who are you?" the leader hissed, his voice low and sharp. Elias didn't answer. Instead, he stepped toward the wall, his hand brushing against a long-handled weapon he hadn't touched in years. The air grew heavier as the bandits exchanged uneasy glances. It was no longer a question of robbing a defenseless man. They had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The forge hissed and crackled, the tension mounting as Elias turned back to face them, his expression unreadable. The bandits shifted uneasily, sensing that their odds of leaving unscathed were slipping away with every passing second. Elias's hand closed around the haft of a warhammer, its polished surface gleaming in the firelight. It wasn't just any tool, it was a relic of his past, forged in blood and fire during a time he'd tried to leave behind. The bandits' leader, his confidence waning, took a cautious step back. But there was no turning back now. "You should have left while you had the chance," Elias said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken history. The bandits lunged together, desperation driving them. Elias moved like a storm. His hammer swung with precision, colliding with a makeshift weapon and sending it clattering to the ground. Sparks flew as the forge roared louder, casting chaotic shadows that blurred the room. One by one, the bandits faltered. The young one who had noticed the weapons tried to flee, but Elias stepped in front of him, his eyes piercing. "Go," Elias said, his tone firm but not unkind. "And remember what you've seen here." The boy hesitated before bolting out the door. The leader, cornered and panting, snarled, "You're just a man. You can't take all of us." But Elias didn't answer. From behind the forge, a shadow moved, a figure Elias had hidden until now. A young woman stepped forward, her own weapon gleaming in her hands. She was lean, fast, and as skilled as her father had trained her to be. The bandit leader's face twisted in shock as the realization hit him. "Two of you." Elias stepped closer, the hammer still in his grip. "You underestimated me. Worse, you underestimated us." The final clash was swift, the bandits overwhelmed by the teamwork of the blacksmith and his daughter. When it was over, the leader staggered out into the night, defeated and humiliated, leaving the others behind. Elias set his hammer down, the forge's glow softening. His daughter grinned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Think they'll come back?" she asked. Elias smiled faintly. "Not after tonight." But as they locked the forge doors, Elias glanced toward the horizon, where a distant shadow moved. He knew the night's fight had awakened more than just old memories. Trouble would come again, and next time it might be even greater. As the quiet of the night settled back over the forge, Elias and his daughter took a moment to breathe. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, its once roaring flames now a steady, comforting glow. The tools and weapons were returned to their places, the shop restored to its usual order. Elias glanced at his daughter, pride shining in his tired eyes. "You handled yourself well," he said. She smirked. "You didn't leave me much to do." Outside, the village remained peaceful, untouched by the chaos that had unfolded. The bandits' defeat was a reminder to anyone who thought the forge was a place of weakness. But for Elias, it was more than that. It was proof that the life he'd built, the quiet strength he'd cultivated, was worth protecting. As they closed the forge for the night, Elias looked at his daughter. "Tomorrow, we go back to making tools." She smiled, knowing that the heart of a blacksmith was always ready, whether forging iron or standing firm against the storm.